Another year done, another year of going through movie after movie. It was a challenge, especially now that streaming is pumping out more animated films. But you know what? It was worth it. Because 2021 feels like the year when we can get back to normal. This year, movies are starting to return exclusively to cinemas and become less dependent on digital and streaming. Not only that, but thanks to modern medicine quickly developing a safe vaccine that is available to the public and America having a normal president again, it's a positive sign that the tough struggles of 2020 will soon be behind us, and we can live our lives worry-free again. Too bad that's not how life works though, because we still have to deal with complete chaos caused by the psychopaths of the world. Despite the progress, we still have to deal with stubborn sociopaths who are prolonging this pandemic by causing new variants because they're so desperate to remain selfish, terrorists who are violently trying to take down democracy in the name of nationalism, and there is now a digital economy that is fully fueled by an unstable billionaire and scams that's trying to destroy the environment and replace it with horrible drawings of monkeys and lions. This would have been a good year, but the problem is that we live with too many stupid people. And yet, the cartoons here have been proven to be more civil and worthwhile than some real human beings. The animated films of 2021 have been a very fascinating bunch. Where there may have been a few duds here and there, a lot of them actually turn out to be memorably great. In fact, I'd even say they've been some of the best works by their respective studio in recent years. I'm sure this will be a case where everyone's list will be different, especially for the best. But this will be my little tribute to Animations 2021, where we will be honoring its greatest achievements and finishing off the bad ones with one final blow. And by the way, this will only feature the fully animated ones. The live-action animation hybrids like Space Jam: A New Legacy or Tom and Jerry don't count. But no matter what happens, we can all agree that this is a cartoon year that we won't soon forget. I'm Animat, and this is the top 5 best and worst animated films of 2021.
Keeping time every time.
Number 5. The Boss Baby, Family Business. This year, I've noticed that there's been a growing amount of people who claim that we are starting to witness the decline of DreamWorks Animation. I wouldn't say that's true at all, because they have been doing great with their streaming shows. Their movies, on the other hand, I can agree that they're not as great as they used to be. There was a time when they were Disney's biggest competitor in the animation industry, and now their films are reduced to making the most out of capitalizing on weak concepts. Rather they be flashy singing trolls based on old toys, or, in this case, Alec Baldwin playing as Alec Baldwin with the body of a baby. And since that's actually one of their most successful franchises in recent years, what can they do to mark the theatrical return of the head of Baby Corp? The answer? Complete chaos. It's self-aware that it doesn't have the talent to let the writing guide the movie with either a well-planned and engaging story or meaningful characters that are worth experiencing the journey with. Instead, all it presents is 100 minutes of over-the-top madness that fills the screen with wacky antics, outrageous action scenes, and babies trying to take over the world with Jeff Goldblum as their leader. It wants to really make the most with this crazy style, but it tries so hard that it ends up becoming a case of style over substance. And yet, what's possibly the craziest thing about this is that its extreme nature actually comes with some benefits. Yes, almost nothing in this makes sense, but it does play a lot more with its abstract animation to have this be at least visually amusing to watch, and I would lie if I said that its wackiness isn't funny at times, or that it doesn't have its touching moments with the family. Honestly, it's kind of an improvement to its predecessor. But does that make it a good movie? Not really. Sure, it looks nice, it has some heart, and can possibly make you laugh, but this is still a Boss Baby sequel, and while it's not entirely the worst, it is undeniably the craziest animated film of the year.
We must not be late for our first day of school.
Oh.
Number 4. Back to the Outback. When Netflix wanted to bring kids to the animated world of Australia, they also wanted to give them something special. A little lesson about not judging someone based on their appearance. Of course, while common to find in these types of movies, this is a nice message for children to learn, and it does have that extra bonus of presenting it with some pretty and often colorful animation and really good actors to help bring new life to this cartoon Outback. Okay, this so far sounds like a pleasantly well-intentioned film. How did this end up on the worst list? Well, as much as it does have its credits, it also has one of the most unoriginal and boring scripts for an animated film this year. Maybe not the most, because you'll see what has that title pretty soon, but this is a strong contender for that spot. Due to the writing easily being the weakest asset of the picture, it leaves the movie almost feeling like a stereotypical kids flick. It has the same kind of tiresome story about a group of animals going on a journey where they have to go from point A to point B in order to have a better life. The cast of characters is a list of one-dimensional archetypes, and even the message can cause more issues than being helpful. I know I said that it's a good moral in itself, but the way the film delivers it makes it feel very forceful and gives this overall tone that is unappealingly childish to where it constantly has to talk down to its audience. And that's what nearly ruins it, the execution. I could forgive its Madagascar-like plotline, the one-note personalities, and overused lessons if they were all handled well. And again, the animation does save this from being full-on bad. However, when going through the pages to fully judge this book, it has very little to offer that feels fresh and new, and results in a trip down under that is more underwhelming.
You're really mean.
But he's so adorable. Look at his cute little bottom.
Number 3. Spirit Untamed. This has got to be the most ironically titled movie on the list, because out of all the animated features of 2021, Spirit Untamed is possibly the tamest of them all. Technically a spin-off to their 2002 hand-drawn animated film, this version of Spirit takes everything that made Stallion of the Cimarron so majestically memorable and replaces it with, well, nothing interesting. At best, I'd say that this is harmless. There's nothing really hate-worthy here, and there are times when it does get a little entertaining with some horse-riding action. However, that's the most positive that I can go with it. Everything else can be best described as a watered-down How to Train Your Dragon, where the exciting concept of a boy bonding with a Night Fury in a world filled with dragons and Vikings has been significantly reduced to a girl bonding with a horse in an uneventful and mostly empty western town. Even the visuals got severely downgraded, where it's noticeable that DreamWorks didn't animate it themselves and, for the sake of keeping the budget low, had the animation outsourced instead. I get what they wanted to try to do though. They wanted to experiment with the idea of taking one of their Netflix shows and turning it into a major motion picture. That does sound great. I mean, imagine watching a big screen movie version of She-Ra or Tales of Arcadia. But that would be too good to be true, apparently. Instead, they went with a movie version of Spirit Riding Free, and it doesn't even fully connect with the series. This is actually a reboot of the show with a different narrative and a different art style. So instead of offering anything memorable, all this movie did is reinvent the wheel in the dullest way possible. No, wait, not even! It tries to reinvent it, but then gives up halfway through and gives the viewers a horse instead. Because that's all this film can give. Not a good movie, but rather a horse.
This horse got a lot of spirit.
You do have a lot of spirit.
Number 2. The Addams Family 2. The 2019 Addams Family is the textbook example of a stereotypically bland animated kids flick. A checklist of every trope that people are generally tired of commonly seeing in these types of cartoons. So what can the Addams do to try to spice things up for their sequel and make things more interesting? The answer? A family road trip across America in the hopes that it could strengthen their bond. And what have they accomplished? Absolutely nothing. Even if they're out of the house, they've pretty much achieved the same result as its predecessor. The same predictably dull feeling to the story, the same awkward-looking animation that offers little to nothing enjoyable to look at, and the same family reduced to basic archetypes that all result in another prominent example of a generic family feature. And just like before, because it's so boring, it makes it additionally frustrating to watch because this is supposed to be the Addams Family. They're one of the most iconic families in pop culture for being anything but boring and generic. And if this movie fails to present the Addams and their macabre nature as fun or fascinating to watch, then you know that the film messed up. You could put them in whatever location you may like, but if you don't know how to use your materials efficiently, then you're pretty much hopeless. Sure, it's far from being the worst movie out there. I mean, it didn't even make it to number 1 on this list. But some could say that this is possibly the worst outcome for a movie because of how it cannot make an impact whatsoever. There is nothing memorable to deliver, rather it be good or bad, and thus makes it too easy to forget whatever happened here in the first place. Yes, making a generic feature is not the end of the world, but when you make the Addams Family feel bland for the second time, that's still pretty bad.
This is cruel, even for you.
And the number 1 worst animated film of 2021 is America the Motion Picture. This movie had one job, and only one job alone to make it work. Be funny. That's it. It didn't have to tell a complex story, it didn't have to be historically accurate or educational in any way, it didn't have to deliver some thought-provoking or political commentary, and it didn't have to be smart or witty. All it had to do was make the jokes funny so that it could be an entertainingly worthwhile comedy. Not only did it fail at that one job, but it became the worst-case scenario when a stupid comedy is not funny. In fact, its own stupidity is its biggest downfall. This movie is so stupid that it never realizes how stupid it actually is, always acting entirely juvenile with its failed attempt of adult humor. Consequentially, it leaves no room for the other elements of the writing like the story or any character development where all it could offer is a large quantity of dumb jokes that all can't even get a single chuckle. I'll give it that there are some cool moments with the animation to deliver some unique action scenes, but that is far from enough to make up for how frustrating it is to watch because of how idiotically unaware that it's being more irritating than amusing. And you know what the worst thing about this is? The one thing that puts this at number 1 on the worst list? There is no excuse for the movie to be this bad. This actually had all the right talent and all the right materials to make this an awesome comedy. Of course you can make a stupid comedy work. I mean, Adult Swim made an entire empire off of great stupid comedies. Even the concept of making a college frat party style retelling of the founding of America has a lot of potential to be fun. In fact, you couldn't ask for better people to bring that concept to life with the combining forces of the creators of Archer and the creators of Clone High. It had everything it needed to be Netflix's next great comedy. And yet, the result could not have been worse than what it has become. Not only being possibly the worst animated film that you could only find on Netflix, but also becoming the worst animated film of 2021.
Oh, God. We're gonna this up, aren't we?
You already have, George. You already have. Whew! It's been a while since I blew off some steam over a bad animated movie like that. But better get all the negativity out of my system so I can be fully prepared to praise the greatest animated works of the year. But before we get into the best list, let's take a moment to highlight the honorable mentions. Thanks to streaming becoming more popular than ever, there have been more animated features released than in 2020. I'll say now that the following movies are actually pretty decent. In fact, I'd even go as far and say that some of them are actually quite good. However, these are the ones that find themselves in the middle. They're not as spectacular as the ones on the best, but they did a far better job than the ones on the worst. And so, in alphabetical order, the honorable mentions of 2021 are Arlo the Alligator Boy, a fun feature that has a lot of great work in it, like with the songs, the animation, and the acting, but if only it wasn't so dependent on taking the ideas of others to create itself. Diary of a Wimpy Kid turns the beloved kids book into an hour-long, fascinating, and kind of mean-spirited look into starting middle school. My Little Pony: A New Generation. It may be a little too preachy with its commentary and the writing is left to be desired, but it is an impressive start to the 5th generation of the franchise. Paw Patrol the Movie. Yes, this is obviously for preschoolers, but I am still amazed at how even a childless millennial like myself can find this enjoyably fun. Ron's Gone Wrong. Like the titular robot, it has a lot of problems, but it is still lovable in its own quirky way. Rumble, showing off the awesome concept of monster wrestling with amazing animation in one of the most banal sports movies of the year. Sing 2, the second installment of celebrity karaoke with clustered writing, and yet it still managed to pull off a spectacular show as its finale. And finally, Wish Dragon, a heartfelt picture with some solid use of Chinese mythology, but similar to Arlo, if only it could have been its own thing instead of trying so hard to be like Disney's Aladdin. Now, because I know some are curious about this, let's say I extend both the best and the worst list. Where would they each find themselves? Well, they would both be a big list that would have their own whole video to themselves, first of all, but if I'd make that extension, the least worst in this case would include Arlo the Alligator Boy, Wish Dragon, Rumble, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid, while the best at the bottom of the list would have Sing 2, Paw Patrol the Movie, Ron's Gone Wrong, and My Little Pony: A New Generation. But regardless of where they'd theoretically be, this is just a little moment to honor the animated movies of this year that are good. Not the best, or definitely not the worst, but just good.
I can do this.
Number 5. Vivo. Just like the titular character, this movie went through a big journey in order to reach its destination to be viewed by the public. For more than a decade, Lin-Manuel Miranda always wanted to create his dream musical project of a kinkajou traveling from the Havana to Miami to deliver a love letter in the form of a song made by his late owner. It was about to be made at DreamWorks Animation, but then Sony Pictures Animation took the helm and was later finally released on Netflix. And the result made all those years and switching studios completely worth it. Vivo can be best described as an animated celebration of music, filled with a lot of love supplied by everyone who worked on the feature to deliver strong emotional moments, especially with the relationship between Vivo and Andres, great stylized animation that could take the musical numbers to the next level, voice acting where you can hear how the actors were having so much fun with their performances, and of course, the amazing and really catchy songs by Miranda himself. The one catch that keeps this away from being among Sony's best, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is that after an incredible first act, it becomes a generically predictable animated feature, and while not entirely, it sucks out a good amount of fun that it promised at the start. At least in terms of the story, it offers very little surprises as the movie goes through the adventure. But regardless, for what it did right, it did it marvelously, and with the way that it brings that Cuban music to life with animation, Vivo truly is a one-of-a-kind film.
When it came to music, Andres and I became so in sync. Not a moment out of place.
Number 4. The Mitchells vs. the Machines. Hey look, I put the fan-favorite non-Disney film on a spot that is pretty distant from number 1 on the best list. I'm sure I'll be fine by making that decision and that the audience and the comments section will be perfectly okay with it and be respectful to my opinion, even if it doesn't entirely align with theirs. Nah, but in all seriousness, this movie is an absolute blast. On the surface, this may seem like your typical family road trip movie that follows the same predictable cliches that these types of films regularly have. And while that is a bit true, like how this may not have the greatest written story on the list, The Mitchell's Road Trip turned out to be one of the best of its kind. Thanks to its excellent execution that takes away a lot of the doubt from the concept, the movie was able to provide so much in one feature-length package. It has a cast of dysfunctional yet lovable characters, both within the family and amongst the machines, that were given a lot of love from their respective actors. It has a heartfelt message about the importance of family that is rightfully placed at the core of the picture. It has impressively creative animation that not only presents its distinct 2D-like style, but it always keeps the movie exciting and makes the action scenes a lot of fun. It has a clever commentary about modern technology and the role that it plays on our everyday lives, both good and bad, which is kind of weird that a Sony movie is telling us this, but I digress. And especially, this is the funniest movie from Sony Pictures Animation. It's not every day that you encounter a movie that has a large quantity of jokes and make virtually all of them hilarious. It's understandable how The Mitchells gathered quite a fan base. It's one of those movies that can deliver a lot of love, a lot of laughs, and a lot of fun in the form of a crazy road trip that people will never forget.
So we just do that, right?
Number 3. Luca, where The Mitchells vs. the Machines is a wild and crazy roller coaster with lots of action and fast-paced comedy, Luca is the complete opposite that delivers a calm and immersive experience, the kind that lets audiences kick back, relax, and enjoy the view. While it may not be Pixar's most awe-inspiring masterpiece, or not even on par to their last feature, Luca is more of an homage to the Studio Ghibli films. In a way, the tone is so tame that it can almost be considered a slice-of-life feature. With its more subdued nature, it rather wants to take its time to explore the quaint Italian town of Porto Rosso, to get immersed in its own beauty supplied by the animation to make it feel like a little summer vacation with two supernatural kids that are learning so much about the world around them. And instead of going into an epic adventure, it rather wants to spend its energy to make this as emotionally touching as possible, making this about Luca and Alberto and how their friendship evolved as they discover what it means to be human instead of living their lives as secluded sea monsters. It's a character-driven story that's about what they want in life and emphasizes how it means so much to them to live their dream above the waters. In a time where mainstream animated films would rather want to be constantly bombastic and fill every second with cartoon chaos, this is one of those rare movies that rather wants to take its time to let the characters live their lives and enjoy their environment. And honestly, I feel like that change of pace is more than welcome. You don't need loud gimmicks and make some save-the-world type of adventure to be good. Sometimes, all you need is a little reminder to be like you're on the Italian Riviera and enjoy the simpler things in life. And maybe a ride on a Vespa could be pretty cool too.
Silenzio Bruno! Can you still hear him?
Nope, just you!
Good! Now hang on!
Number 2. Raya and the Last Dragon. Disney has a rather complex case when it comes to their more action-oriented animated features. There are times when they could be as great as their musicals, like The Rescuers Down Under and Big Hero 6, but they can also result in some of their faultier works like Atlantis or Treasure Planet. In the case of Raya, not only is this one of their better action flicks, but this is also possibly their most intense animated feature yet. Now, I know that a lot of people have heavily criticized it for saying that it's very similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender. And yes, while it is true that copying ideas from others can be a problem, Raya's case is really not that bad. And I feel like that argument is a weak reason to view this movie negatively. It's like saying that The Mitchells vs. the Machines is a lot like a Goofy movie. And while there are some noticeable comparisons, how many would want to publicly say that this movie is not good for it? But back onto Raya, the film took note of what made Avatar so successful while also implementing a lot of its own original concepts for it to stand as its own project in order to give its own story of a girl who wants to reunite the divided lands and take down evil spirits by putting back the pieces of the Dragon Orb together. While it does supply a great amount of creative action that can put audiences at the edge of their seats, what makes Raya so engaging is how this movie has some of Disney's most elaborate world building. How each area of Kumandra is so distinct with their own fully functional culture, which is enhanced by the incredibly detailed animation and the unique characters that are voiced by amazingly talented actors, on top of a strong message of trust and unity that feels perfectly timed for what we've been facing for these last couple of years. I won't say that it's a perfect movie though. In fact, I feel like most of the comedy is a bit out of place for this feature. But this is a case where it's noticeable where Disney really gave it their all and it paid off so beautifully. And yet, what could possibly top Disney giving us some of their best animated action so far?
I too wish to join this fellowship of Droon, but kickery.
And the number one best animated film of 2021, and the answer to that question is... Encanto. Okay, before I talk about this, I can already hear some people angrily revving up their keyboards in the comments about my choices on the best list. Yes, I am aware that I stacked up the Disney films at the top. I swear that was not intentional. But even at that, I know that my choices will be controversial and some might get upset that their favorite film is not at number one. Look, I'm not hiding that this is all based on my opinion, and this is not to undermine either Vivo or Mitchells. I still really like them both regardless, and I understand why people love Mitchells so much and why they consider it their number one. It's just that for me, I had a wonderful time with most of Disney's animated features, and I personally consider them some of the best movies of this year. Besides, at least they're better than what I could say about most things Disney did recently. Anyways, to answer that question from before, what's better than some of Disney's best animated action is what Disney does best: a magical musical. Imagine if you take one great element from each of the movies from the best list and combine them into one ultimate feature. The unforgettable songs crafted by Lin-Manuel Miranda from Vivo, the heartfelt story about family from Mitchells, the emotionally relatable characters from Luca, and the beautifully detailed animation from Raya, all combined with a unique and colorful Colombian theme to deliver something that feels both familiar and fresh from Disney. Just like the family with their special gifts, there is this sense of magic that is the key to making this so charming and engaging. While that sense of fantasy comes to life with the casita, the musical numbers, and the characters' gifts, it can also feel very real with the bond between the family and the true meaning of it. How Mirabel connects with her relatives delivers some of the most powerful moments in a way that is very relatable and touching. It had been 5 years since Disney made a new addition to their legendary list of original animated musicals, with the last time being Moana. And their 60th animated feature provides exactly what they had been missing for so long to make new timeless classics. And that's what makes Encanto the number one best animated film of 2021. And that's all I've got for the top 5 best and worst animated films of 2021. Honestly, at least with the animated movies, this was a pretty good year with a whole bunch to fondly remember by. However, I know that I'm gonna have to brace myself for next year. There's going to be more animated films than ever that will be coming out both on the big screen and on streaming. So there will be plenty to look forward to, and possibly to dread. And by the way, I won't be highlighting all the animated movies that will be coming out next year, especially when you never know when some of these streaming movies will be released until they announce it at the last minute. And so, here is what will be in store for us in 2022. Here we go again. But I am glad that this will be the last one and the franchise won't become the next Ice Age. Speaking of which... Oh, that's interesting. Who's making this again? Oh no. Looks like fun, but I'm more happy that Pixar's coming back to theaters. Holy crap, we might actually get a good DreamWorks film. I like the idea of it, but I got a bad feeling about this one. Oh, is that still happening? I almost forgot about it. To infinity and yes! This better have a good reason to make us wait 2 whole years for the Minions' return. And I don't mean the obvious one. Henry Selick is back, and that's enough for me to get excited for this. Oh, I remember the first movie. That was pretty good. I'm down for another. The hype is high for this one, but so are the standards it's gotta match, so good luck. Let's hope Roderick rules more than Greg did. You have no idea how long I've waited for this. And finally, please don't mess this up. Remember to stay safe, wear a mask, and keep up to date with being fully vaccinated, because no matter who you are, we're all in this together. So, until next time, see you later, dudes!
Even in our darkest moments,